Good morning and welcome to the Coach Approach. This is Coach Bruce. You can find me at Coach Bruce 122 on Twitter. Hey, let's talk some football. If you guys have any start and sit questions, just post them in the chat. I will get them on the show. We'll answer any questions that you have. If you have trade offers, if you're looking for, and please include if it's PPR, half PPR, if it's standard scoring, any information you can provide to help me with any start and sit questions that you have, trade offers, or anything to help you win your fantasy leagues this weekend. So I'm solo this week. If you guys haven't figured that out, this is the first time I've gone solo. Brett Pape, my co-host, is actually traveling. I believe he's got a family deal for his daughter for college. So we wish him safe travels. I know he's probably listening in right now as well. But hey, typically this show kind of give you a rundown of how the show works. I'll typically go through every matchup on the Sunday slate. I will not do the Monday Night Football game tomorrow, but I will post some information on that tomorrow morning for you. So this week, we're going to dive right into it. So this week, starting out, we've got the Green Bay Packers at Jacksonville Jaguars. The Packers are 5-2. Jacksonville Jaguars at 2-5. I've got Green Bay, as far as prediction goes, Green Bay Packers 31, Jacksonville 17. I just think the offense in Green Bay is a little bit too much to handle for the Jacksonville defense, and Jacksonville's defense is struggling, obviously. So Green Bay start and sit. Green Bay's offense is 7th in scoring at 26.6 points per game. They are 5th in rushing, 155 yards a game, and 5th in passing at 253.6 per game. I did not count the 2 games with Malik Willis. I think that skews the numbers a little bit. Obviously, Jordan Love is balling right now in the passing game, so we're going to just use those numbers. In the quarterback room, we'll start there. The Jaguars give up the most fantasy points, passing yards, and touchdown passes to quarterbacks. Jordan Love is QB3 in fantasy points per game. We've got him locked in at QB4 this week, so he's got high-end QB1 upside. He's thrown 2 or more touchdowns in every game and has 15 touchdown passes in just 5 games. He scored at least 17 fantasy points in every game with 3 top 7 finishes. So he's a must start for me. Jordan Love should be in your lineups. In the running back room, Jags allow the 10th most fantasy points per game, the most receptions, receiving yards, and the 2nd most touchdowns to running backs. So if you've got a running back, you've got Josh Jacobs every week. Whoever is playing against the Jacksonville Jaguars, feel confident in starting the running back. Josh Jacobs is RB9 this week. He's RB24 in fantasy points per game on the season. He has scored in double digits in 5 out of 6 games with a season high 20.2 PPR points last week. He's averaging 19 touches and 93.8 scrimmage yards per game. He is a start. He's in your lineup. Wide receiver room. Jags are giving up the 3rd most fantasy points per game, 3rd most receptions, 3rd most receiving yards, and 4th most touchdowns to wide receivers. So just like the running back room, you have a wide receiver against Jacksonville. He's probably in your lineups, especially if they're a wide receiver 1, maybe even a wide receiver 2 in that offense. So Jaden Reed is an absolute start. Wide receiver 13 in fantasy points per game on the season. He's had 2 wide receiver 1 finishes this year in week 2 and in week 4, so he's in your lineups. Romeo Doubs, wide receiver 39 in fantasy points per game. He's a wide receiver 3 flex play for me this week. He is on the field at all times. Doesn't matter if they're in 10 personnel, 11 personnel, 12 personnel. He is in the lineup. So I like Romeo Doubs this week as a wide receiver 3 flex play. I'm out on Dontavian Wicks. Not enough consistent volume there. He's basically a boom or bust play. And then Christian Watson, he's had 3 games under a 6% target share and 4 games ranked outside the top 38 wide receivers. So I'm out on Christian Watson. Tight end room, Jags have given up the 10th most receiving yards, most touchdowns, and 6th most fantasy points to tight ends this year. So Tucker Kraft should be in your lineups. Since he splashed on the scene in week 4, he's in tight end 3 with an average of 14.5 fantasy points per game. He was a tight end 1 in weeks 4 and 5 and a tight end 11 in week 7. So that's 3 top 12 fantasy finishes. So I like Tucker Kraft this week. On the other side of the ball, and then we're going to get right to your start and sit questions. I love it. Keep them coming. We will get to them as they come in. Jacksonville start and sits. Their offense is 21st in scoring, 20.7 per game. However, over the last 3 games, we've seen that offense kind of catch a groove. They're up 28 to 28.3 points per game. They're 12th in rushing and 19th in passing. In the quarterback room, we have Trevor Lawrence. Green Bay is 6th in fantasy points a game was allowed to quarterbacks. He's our QB 22 on the season in fantasy points per game, playing very well as of late. He scored in double digits in every game with only 1 game over 20 points. He was a top 10 quarterback only once. QB 16 over the last 3 games, completing 74% of his passes for 797 yards and 5 touchdowns. He should be in your lineup, depending on who you have. Obviously, with Evan Ingram back, the emergence of Brian Thomas Jr., I'm confident playing Trevor Lawrence. But if you've got a top 12 quarterback, obviously you're playing him over Trevor Lawrence. Running back room, I love Tank Bigsby. He is the RB7 over the last 3 games in fantasy points per game. Ran for more than 100 yards in 2 of the last 3 with 4 touchdowns. So he's absolutely in your lineup. Travis Etienne did not play in week 7, limited practice on Wednesday. Look, I'm okay in the passing game, him getting some touches, but Tank Bigsby still going to be the guy in early down work, going to get the goal line work. He's been more explosive. So even if Etienne is in play, I don't expect him to be the bell cow in this offense. I think that's Tank Bigsby. Wide receiver room, Green Bay is 14th in fantasy points per game and 14th in receiving yards allowed to the wide receiver position. Brian Thomas is wide receiver 15 in points per game this season, but he's the wide receiver 6 over the last 4 games with 3 touchdowns and 3 top 10 finishes, so he is in your lineup. Christian Kirk, wide receiver 53 on the season, only scored in double digits 3 times. He's had consecutive games back in weeks 3 and 4 with over 10 targets, but only 13 total in the last 3 games, just 8 receptions and no touchdowns. I'm not comfortable starting Christian Kirk. So therefore, I'm not comfortable starting Gabe Davis either. As far as your tight end room, Evan Ingram's tight end 5 in fantasy points per game. Green Bay gives up 23rd most fantasy points per game to the tight ends and has given up 7 touchdowns to the position. So Evan Ingram is absolutely in play for me. Let's get to the start and sit questions. Appreciate it, guys. So Brett Pape, my host, obviously is throwing some questions out. I love it. I'll get you in a second, Brett. Appreciate it. Hunter Hott. If DK plays today, do you start him or will he be limited? DK Metcalf has been doubtful. I'm highly doubt he is playing. Hey, you guys, the last injury reports should typically come out right at 8:30, which is when we go live. I don't have a co-host, so when Brett's talking, I can usually dive into that. Not able to do that today. If you guys see any updates on injuries, please let me know. But as of right now, DK is out. If he was playing, I'd imagine he's on a pitch count, so I'm probably not playing DK Metcalf unless I absolutely have to. Appreciate the question, Hunter. Andrew, thanks for tuning in, man. Start David Njoku or Jake Ferguson in full PPR. Look, with Jameis Winston now being inserted in the lineup, Amari Cooper gone, I think that offense is going to run through David Njoku. So I would trust David Njoku more than I would trust Jake Ferguson versus San Francisco 49ers in full PPR. That is David Njoku for me. Appreciate the question, Andrew. Jared Nelson, half PPR flex spot. Christian Kirk, Austin Eckler, Josh Downs, or Sam Laporta. You guys will hear as I get these game breakdowns. And honestly, man, if I don't get to the game breakdowns, I'd rather be answering start and sit questions. So keep firing at me. But in this one, the first thing typically I'm going to do is eliminate somebody. I don't know that I trust Josh Downs with Anthony Richardson. His passing numbers have been absolutely atrocious. So I don't trust Josh Downs this week. Brian Robinson Jr. has been a little bit banged up. So Austin Eckler in terms of PPR, a little bit more of a play there. And half PPR, I'm not as excited about Austin Eckler. Christian Kirk has almost been absent in that offense in Jacksonville. We just talked about this week with the emergence of Brian Thomas and now with Evan Ingram in the lineup. So, and then Sam Laporta, I love the talent, just not giving you enough volume there. I think this game, the Lions game, becomes a run-heavy script in the second half. I expect him to be playing with the lead and being a positive game script. So not a lot of great choices there. If I had to choose one, you probably have to go Josh Downs, but I don't love it with Anthony Richardson. But if Josh Downs is playing, he's healthy, he's probably the best get there. In terms of catches. But Sam Laporta, to me, higher ceiling, because I do think, again, no Jameson Williams. I think Sam Laporta. So if I'm going higher ceiling, it's Sam Laporta. If I'm going safer floor, it's probably Josh Downs. Hunter Hott with another question. Michael Pittman or Dontavion Wicks? Dontavion Wicks, that Green Bay Packers wide receiver room is interesting because you've really got 4 guys in play there. Dontavion Wicks has been that boom or bust play. He's not getting consistent volume week in and week out. He's almost touchdown dependent, but again, it's a question about Anthony Richardson and that passing game in Indianapolis. I'd probably go Wicks over Pittman. I feel like this is a game. I feel like Wicks is due. He may not get a lot of volume, but I feel like he finds the end zone. So I'll go Dontavion Wicks there. And I know it's crazy to say that, but with Joe Flacco in, that's a no-brainer. It's Michael Pittman. But appreciate the question, Hunter. Cam Overland. Christian or Kirk Cousins, Kirko Chains, or Tua Tagovailoa. Hey, look, some people made the mistake of not starting Stafford with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua back this week and paid the price for it. I was one of those guys. I found out late. I was traveling, did not get a chance to put Stafford in my lineup, and obviously got killed for that. But To me, it's Kirko changes, or it's Tua Tagovailoa. I think they're going to try to get Tyreek Hill involved. I think Jalen Waddle has a splashback game, so I'm going Tua Tagovailoa there. Appreciate the question, Cam. And Alex Johnson, happy Roma Dunze Day. Hey man, we're due. We're due for a Roma Dunze game, that's for sure. Full PPR, Brett Pape, Tucker Kraft, or Travis Kelce. Man, that's a good one. No Hollywood Brown this year. No Rashee Rice this year. Juju Smith is still out. Yes, you get DeAndre Hopkins, but he's probably on a pitch count. I would love to say Travis Kelce there, but I think in that passing offense and with Kansas City, it is that defense that's winning football games. They're playing ball control with giving Kareem Hunt, even at less than 4 yards, to carry heavy volume and touches. I'd probably go Tucker Kraft there. I feel like that's a safer play. What else we got? Randy, appreciate the question, man. Start Kareem Hunt or Jonathan Taylor. Also have Mixon and Achane. Assuming, hey, that's a good problem to have. If you're sitting there with all four of those running backs, Randy, and you got to figure out how do I play just one of those guys, that's a pretty good position to be in. The first part of that is going to be Hunt or Taylor. Between those two, I'm probably going to go Jonathan Taylor, and I say that because I think they're going to have to lean heavy on the run game there in Indianapolis with Anthony Richardson back in. So I actually like Jonathan Taylor. I think the explosiveness is better there, and I think the opportunity to find the end zone is there. I'm going to lean Jonathan Taylor, but that's close. Flip a coin. Mixon or Achane. If that's a second question or if that's part of the same one, I'm still going to go. It's hard to not play Mixon, honestly, in Houston in that offense. Joe Mixon in the games he has played, I think he's played 3 or 4 games. I'll get to that breakdown when I get to that game, but Mixon's been absolutely balling out. So between those 4, I probably like Mixon as the higher ceiling. Pitts or Andrews for Richie Mercado. We've seen Mark Andrews over the last couple of games be a little bit more relevant. I still don't like that tight end room. I still think they lean heavy on Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry in the run game there. I'm not sold. I need more than one, pop game for Mark Andrews. He's not so touchdown dependent. Like to see a little bit more volume. So I'm going to go Kyle Pitts there. I think lately Kyle Pitts is seeing more of that volume. So I like Kyle Pitts over Mark Andrews this week. Thank you for the question, Richie. Appreciate it. And Ryan Bendel, thanks for coming on the show, man. Blake, you got a brother named Jared. Those of you guys that don't know, Ryan Bendel and Blake Nelson are very good friends of mine. I used to coach those guys back in the day when they were in high school, but they like to bash each other on the show, which I love. Chase Van Loo, thanks for joining in, man. Keon Coleman or Michael Pittman, half PPR. So I posted on Twitter a few days ago, and I said I liked Keon Coleman versus Khalil Shakir this week. That's based on a single high look that Buffalo will face this week. Against single high, you attack them vertically on the perimeter or in the quick game. So I like Keon Coleman over Michael Pittman. Again, that's because of Anthony Richardson. If Joe Flacco was playing, I would say Michael Pittman. I do like Keon Coleman. I'm probably in the minority there, but I like Keon Coleman to find the end zone this week. Thank you, Chase. Appreciate the question, man. Hope you're doing well, buddy. Ryan Bendel. I got Jaden Daniels in 2 leagues, one with Dak as a backup and one with Jordan Love as my backup. Would you play either over Jaden Daniels? I would play Jordan Love over Jaden Daniels. It's not a great matchup for Washington. I still like Jaden Daniels because of the rushing upside, but if I'm going to have to pick one of those two, I'm going to go Jordan Love with a guy that's giving me basically 15 touchdowns in 5 games. So he's throwing 3 touchdown passes a game. So I'm going to take Jordan Love and ride the hot hand there. I know that sounds crazy with the rushing upside, but I trust Jordan Love this week. Chase Lou, happy football day to everyone. You too, brother. Appreciate you. Cam Overland, Jordan Mason or Tank Dell? Man, I would probably lean Jordan Mason as a safer floor. And I say that I do think with Houston, they're going to have to be a little bit more pass heavy this week and maybe not as balanced unless they're playing with the lead late in the game with Joe Mixon. I do like Tank Dell this week, but I'm probably going to lead safer floor Jordan Mason simply because of the volume he's getting in that San Francisco offense. And the Dallas Cowboys cannot stop a nosebleed in the run game. They had a decent game against, I think it was the Giants where they held Tyron Tracy and Singletary, but that's not exactly an explosive run game. So I like Jordan Mason this week. Hunter Hotz, Chase Brown or Romeo Dobbs? I will take Chase Brown. I think Chase Brown has taken over that backfield in Cincinnati. I think he's a lead guy over Zach Moss. I think the touches is there. He gives you more explosiveness, and he's a little bit more involved in the passing game. So I like Chase Brown there. Romeo Dobbs, love the volume he's getting. He's basically getting a 90+% snap share in Green Bay, but not always getting the target volume to match that. So I'm going to go Chase Brown. I think there's a higher ceiling there. And Todd McMillan, Runway, thanks for joining the show, brother. Appreciate you, man. Can we count on Reek to go over 100? If I'm betting my money on it, I think there's a legit chance. I think they're going to rely. Mike McDaniel likes the run game. He likes to play in that wide zone, but he also likes to set up play action and take some shots. They use Tyreek in the screen game. He's got a chance to take the house anytime. I think they're going to pepper him. I think Tyreek has earned the right to get peppered. So, yes, I would take Tyreek Hill on the 100. If I was betting your money, absolutely, I'll take that bet, man. Don't say Andrews. That's funny. Appreciate you, man. Thanks, Todd. What else we got? Randy. T. Higgins and Etienne have been ruled out today. Just a heads up. Appreciate that, Randy. Thank you. Obviously, we're going to get in the Cincinnati breakdown. I had some notes in there that he may be out. He did just pop up on the injury report on Friday with a soft tissue quad injury. It's unfortunate. T. Higgins is out. Ryan Bendel will be happy to hear that I've picked the Eagles to win that game in case we don't get to that game breakdown due to start and sit questions. So, Jared Nelson, Dak or Kirk Cousins. So Dak Prescott has not played well against the San Francisco 49ers. I believe he's got 3 touchdowns versus 6 interceptions in 3 games against San Francisco. Obviously, we know what happened in the playoff games when they play San Francisco. It's not been good for Dak, so I'm going to go Kirk O'Chains right there. Ryan Bendel, great pick, Coach. He's an Eagles fan for those of you that do not know. So anytime I pick the Eagles to win, Bendel's going to love it. Keep the start and sit questions coming. Love it. Would rather do these start and sit questions than run through these game recaps. But appreciate you guys for tuning in. Chase Van Loo, Geno Smith or Jaden Daniels if he plays. Now in that matchup, Geno Smith gives you absolutely nothing in the run game. DK Metcalf is out. I think it's a bigger week for JSN versus Tyler Lockett. Obviously, Geno Smith is leading the NFL in pass attempts, completions, and yardage, so they tend to be a little bit more pass heavy. But I like Kenneth Walker this week in the run game, so I'm going to go Jaden Daniels. I think he gives you a higher ceiling in terms of the run game. And look, if he's in, you know the rushing yards are going to be there. I expect him to be over 50 yards rushing. That's going to give you at least 5 points right there. And I expect him to find the end zone in the rushing game. So Todd McMillan, poor Ryan. Keep the banter going, man. I love it, guys. Rain game in Seattle as well. That's a great point, Chase. I have not had a chance to go through the weather reports. I've been trying to get through all my notes here this morning. Todd McMillan says, Ryan, you can keep Andrews. I'm assuming that's for Ryan. I love it, man. You guys crack me up, man. Miss you guys. And Chase Van Loo, I agree, Coach. Thank you very much, Chase. I appreciate that. All right, as we get more start and sit questions, we'll get to those. Let's get to the next game. We have the Arizona Cardinals versus the Miami Dolphins. Cardinals have not had back-to-back wins since October of 2021. That's over 33 games. So statistically speaking, the Cardinals are due for a loss this week. So I got Miami Dolphins 27, Cardinals 23. As far as start and sit questions for Arizona, they're 19th in scoring, 6th in rushing, and 25th in passing. As far as the quarterback room goes, Miami's played very well against quarterbacks. They're first in fantasy points per game, only giving up 8.6. They are first in passing yards allowed with only 164.8, first in touchdown passes allowed with only 3, and 5th in rushing yards allowed to quarterbacks, which is important when you're playing Kyler Murray. But they faced Josh Allen, Geno Smith, T-Law, back before T-Law was playing well, Mason Rudolph, and Jacoby Brissett, Anthony Richardson. So take that as a grain of salt. We don't always have to trust the stats. We want to dig a little bit deeper on those stats. Kyler Murray, for me, is not a must start against this pass defense, but I do have him in superflex formats. He's only had one game with more than 200 passing yards and 1 touchdown pass. So Kyler Murray, to me, is not a must start, but he does always give you QB1 upside. So unless you have a better play, he's probably in your lineups. As far as running backs go, in the running back room, Miami is first in fantasy points per game allowed to running backs. Fourth in fantasy points per game allowed to running backs, 20th in rushing yards allowed, have given up 10 touchdowns to the running back position. I'm all in on James Conner. He's an absolute bell cow. He's RB22 in fantasy points per game at 14.0, but he always gives you an RB1 upside. So I'm in on James Conner. And then wide receiver room, Marvin Harrison Jr. He's wide receiver 42 in fantasy points per game at just 10.6. He's been boom or bust this season. He's had 4 games with less than 6 fantasy points, and he's had 6 or more targets in all but 2 games, but has hauled in just 20 of 43 passes for only a 46% catch rate. So I'm out on Marvin Harrison Jr., but he's not a must sit. All depends on your lineups and who you have. Obviously, Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch, I'm out on those guys. Trey McBride, as far as the tight end room, he's tight end 5 in fantasy points per game. Miami is second in fantasy points per game against tight ends, and I've only given up 3.5 grabs and 29 yards to the position. But this is Trey McBride. He's a volume play. He's in your lineup. Quarterback room on the other side with Miami. Tua Tagovailoa returns to lineup this week. Arizona's 28th in fantasy points per game allowed to quarterbacks and 28th in passing yards allowed. So you could not have picked a better game to bring Tua back in. He's an absolute must play for me. High end QB2 with QB1 upside. Devon Achane, after missing week 6, he finished with 15 carries for 77 yards. He's a home run hitter. Cardinals give up the 11th most fantasy points per game to running backs, 10th most rushing yards, so he's a start for me. Raheem Mostert, you're touchdown dependent, so I'm not big on Raheem Mostert this week. We talked about Tyreek Hill. He's in. Jalen Waddle, he's in. And you get the tight end room with Jonnu Smith. He's played well recently, but with both Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill with Tua Tagovailoa, those are your 1A and 1B in terms of wide receiver room and touches in the passing game. And of course, Devin Achane, that makes Jonnu Smith probably the 4th option in that offense. So I'm out on Jonnu Smith this week. But again, he's tight end 20, tight end 15 on the season. So I'm not afraid to play Jonnu Smith if I have to. Let's see. Any questions? Alave, Andrew. Let's take a look at Andrew's question here. Chris Olave, Ladd McConkey, or Ricky Pearsall. Chris Olave's got Spencer Rattler. As long as Spencer Rattler's back there throwing the rock, I just don't trust playing Chris Olave, even with Rashid Shaheed out. I think, and also Taysom Hill being back, I think you'll see some gadget plays on offense, and they're going to use Taysom Hill if they are fortunate enough to get into the red zone. So of those guys, I'm probably going to take Ladd McConkey. I think it's a decent game from this week. He's obviously been getting the target share. It's the yardage and the touchdown output that has not been there, but I do trust Ladd McConkey this week to be the better play. I think he has a safer floor. Hunter Hott. Let's see. Raheem Mostert, Rico Dowdle, Jalen Tolbert, or Ray McLeod. We talked about Raheem Mostert. I think that Devon Achane has taken the RB1 in that backfield. I think Mostert is really, and he's even getting 50% of the red zone touches and inside the 5-yard line, whereas you thought Mostert was the short yarders and goal line back. Not necessarily been the case. I'm out on him. I don't trust anybody in that Cowboys backfield. In that game breakdown, Rico Dowdle 2 weeks ago before the bye played very, very well, had 20 touches, 90-something yards, and was a top 12 running back that week. Then the following game, he gets 5 touches in the run game. So made no sense to me. Jalen Tolbert, I do like him this week as a wide receiver too in Dallas against San Francisco. I think we're looking at a negative game script. I think if Dallas has a chance to win, it's going to have to be in the passing game. So I don't mind playing Jalen Tolbert. And then Ray McLeod, just not enough consistency there. So of those 4 guys, I'm probably going to go. God, I wish I could go Rico Dowdle, but to be honest with you, I'm probably going to go Jalen Tolbert there. It's between Tolbert and Mostert. Again, Mostert's kind of touchdown dependent there, but I'll probably go Jalen Tolbert. Jared Nelson, full PPR, Zay Flowers, Chris Olave, or Ramondre Stevenson. I like Zay Flowers this week. Ramondre Stevenson has not been very efficient in the run game with his touches, not enough volume in the passing game. I do like Drake May, but he seems to be, kind of favoring Hunter Henry. I think, Jacoby Myers, actually at the Raiders now. I don't know why I just said Jacoby Myers when it came to the Patriots, just being old, I guess. But and then Todd McMillan, probably talking smack, but I know you're not on to Tampa yet. Do you have trust in any of the wide receivers today? I have Palmer. I'm forced to play due to a bye. Yeah, Trey Palmer's probably the least one that I like in that offense. In Tampa Bay, obviously Chris Godwin out for the year, and now Mike Evans being out probably until after the bye week in week 11. And what's weird is I think everybody wants to start Jalen McMillan, the rookie. I actually prefer, not necessarily this week, but long-term Sterling Sharp and that big slot role. I think he's more of the Chris Godwin type. He's going to force to play outside with Mike Evans out, but with Jalen McMillan. Jalen McMillan historically has played, I think, at 64 to 65% of his snaps on the outside. So I see Sterling Shepard taking on that big slot role. I actually like Sterling Shepard the most in that for rest of season. That's not necessarily this week. I think they're going to try to get Jalen McMillan involved. But the guy to have in that Tampa Bay offense is Cade Otton for me. I think they're going to pepper Cade Otton this week. Alex Johnson. Achane might finish the week as RB1 overall. I would not be surprised if Achane finishes an RB1. I think with the passing game, what they can do with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Tua and the big splash plays and the explosive plays, that opens up the run lanes for Devon Achane. I absolutely agree with you. Blake Nelson, Goff or Stroud, I would go with in those two. Jared Goff is playing very, very well, but in one quarterback leagues, I do not have him as a must start this week. I think he's more of a super flex league or two quarterback leagues, or if you have a guy that is injured. Jared Goff is absolutely balling out right now, but he's very touchdown dependent. Doesn't give me much in the run game, which he's thrown a lot of lately. But I like C.J. Stroud. I think it's the higher ceiling this week. Jared Goff gives you a safer floor. So if you're in a must-win week, I'm probably playing C.J. Stroud over Jared Goff. Todd McMillan says, Jake, get to work, or Blake, get to work. I don't know what that means, but I'm assuming you're working this weekend. I know you're probably slinging some cars. So if anybody wants to buy some cars, Blake Nelson's your guy. Chase Van Loo, Bucky Irving, or Josh Downs. Man, it's Bucky Irving for me. I know Bucky Irving's been battling some injuries this week, but I do think that he's got a great opportunity. Rachaad White has played well recently as well. Sean Tucker, what we thought was going to be a three-headed monster last week, which it was, but based on what we have seen in terms of snap count, I think it's Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. Hopefully that's more of a 50-50 split this week, but I do think Rachaad White gets the most of the rushing share unless Bucky Irving gets hot. I just don't trust Josh Downs in most cases with Anthony Richardson, so I'm going to go Bucky Irving in half PPR. Todd McMillan, thank you, brother. Appreciate you, man. Let's see, we got any more questions here? No, we do not. So let's go to the next game. We have New York Jets at New England Patriots. And again, guys, if you have start and sit questions, post them in the comments. I will get to them as we get done with the game breakdowns. New York Jets 2-5 at New England Patriots 1-6. I love what I'm seeing from Drake May, but I think the Jets roster is simply better, and they can't afford to lose any more ground with playoff expectations. You can't go 2-6 after the first 8 games. You're pretty much eliminated from the playoffs. New England at 1-6. They're playing for draft picks at this point. I've got New York Jets 23, New England Patriots 17. As far as New York Jets, they're 24th in scoring, 31st in rushing yards, and 11th in passing yards. In the quarterback room, Aaron Rodgers, he's QB 21 on the season. Over the last 4 games, he's thrown the ball 42.5 times a game. The volume is there. He gets Devontae Adams, and he gets, obviously, Garrett Wilson. So I like Aaron Rodgers this week as a QB2 against the New England Patriots. Christian Gonzalez, by the way, does not travel often, and you've got two wide receiver one guys like you do with Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams. They're both going to have opportunities in the passing game, so I'm okay starting both those guys. Breece Hall's RB16 fantasy points per game. If you take out weeks 4 and 5, though, he's at 16.4 fantasy points per game, which would put him at RB7. There's a couple weeks there where Brandon Allen was getting some touches, and they were kind of resting Breece Hall a little bit, but he's a start for me. I'm out on Brandon Hall. His touches have almost gone to backup. He's a good handcuff, but he's not a guy I trust to play from week to week. And then Tyler Conklin, he's 23rd in fantasy points per game, tight end 25 this week. If you're in a pinch, you don't have a better option. I get it, but he's touchdown dependent. I don't trust playing Tyler Conklin. Other side of the ball, we have the quarterback room for the New England Patriots. New York Jets are 5th in fantasy points per game against quarterbacks and 6th in passing yards allowed to quarterbacks. Drake May is not a must start for me. He was QB10 and QB7 in his 2 starts at 21.2 fantasy points per game. I love the talent. I just don't love the matchup this week. He's averaging 35 pass attempts and 23 completions with a 65.7% completion rate. But he gets the DBs there, and Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed are some of the best in the business. So I do not trust Drake May as a must start in one quarterback leagues. Superflex leagues, I'm okay probably playing him, but I'm looking for better options. Running back room, Ramondre Stevenson. He's a mid RB3 this week, so not really excited about him. He's RB28 on the season, 9.3 fantasy points per game. So not a must start for me. I'm out on Antonio Gibson. He's averaging 5 fantasy points per game, even in PPR formats. Wide receiver room, the best guy in that room is Demario Douglas. He was sick last week, so limited to just 2 grabs for 14 yards, but the week prior in Drake May's first start, 6 grabs for 92 yards and a touchdown. So I'm going to play a pass catcher in that offense in the wide receiver room. It's Demario Douglas. Tight end room, Hunter Henry, tight end 9 in fantasy points per game. He's a tight end 3 overall the last 2 weeks on both Drake May games, so that's a security blanket. So I like Hunter Henry this week. And then before we get to the next game, let's get back to start sit questions. Let me scroll up here. Ryan Bendel, Chubb, Debo, or Flowers out of those 3 full PPR. I'm still not. I still think Nick Chubb is on a pitch count. I think he should be on a pitch count. I think Jameis Winston with Cleveland, I think they're going to be in a negative game script, which means more passing than running, as much as I'm sure they would love to be balanced. Debo coming back from pneumonia. George Kittle is back as well. Juwan Jennings is out. We know CMC is out. And we know that Brandon Ayuk is out for the year. I like Zay Flowers. I think he has the higher ceiling this week with Baltimore. The only issue there is going to be if Baltimore gets out into a big lead, it becomes more of the run game. So I would say Debo safer floor. You know what, man? Play Debo. I don't want to read too much into pneumonia and not him sitting out this week. If he's healthy, he's the guy. He's also the RB2 at a pinch. They'll use him in the run game. So I'm going to go Debo there. Does that Jets D feast? Look, on paper, great roster. Hassan Reddick is finally signed. He's into the contract holdout. He's probably on a pitch count, but he gives you something in the rush game. If they can rush 4 and sit back and play 7 in coverage, I think the Jets defense can pick Drake May apart in this matchup. So I do think the Jets D is a great play this week if you have them as an option. Andrew McDaniels is playing. Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate that. So Jaden McDaniels is in your lineup. I know you said McDaniels, but it's funny. I didn't even read your next comment, Andrew, and I knew exactly what you meant. I appreciate you, brother. David Ash. Olave reached White. I just said reached. That's funny. Olave, Rashad White, Brian Robinson, Tank Bigsby. Start 2. We've talked about Chris Olave. Don't love him this week with Spencer Rattler. Rashad White, I do like. I loved him coming out of ASU as a prospect. Felt like if it wasn't for a COVID year and he'd come out the year prior, he probably would have gone a little bit higher in the draft coming off a massive season. But Brian Robinson Jr., I'm a little bit banged up. Tank Bigsby, I like Tank Bigsby, man. He's the guy this week. ETN is out. He's looked extremely good over the last couple of weeks. He's getting all the touches. Whether that's in the short down and distance, long down and distance, in the red zone, inside the 5, Tank Bigsby is the guy. So for me, I'm starting Tank Bigsby. I think there's a higher ceiling there. Appreciate you, Ryan Bendel. Love you, buddy. Kale, I hope I'm saying that. I've already butchered your name. So, man, I apologize. I appreciate you jumping on the show. Seagal, I can say. So I'm going to go with Seagal. Need help on my wide receiver standard league pick 2. Malik Neighbors. Hey, and you guys that are in the chat, man, I love it when iron sharpens iron, man. If you guys want to comment and say who you would start when other people are asking questions, man, I love the interaction. So I'm all for it. So let's read this. Need help on wide receiver 2, standard league pick 2. So standard scoring. So he's got Malik Neighbors, Devontae Adams, Jaden Reed, Romeo Dobbs, Stephon Diggs. Appreciate your help and thumbs up, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Man, pick 2 there. I love Malik Neighbors. Obviously, the target share has been there. Daniel Jones trusts him. Brian Daboll's done a great job of scheming touches for him, whether that's in the screen game or the quick game, and having some calculated play action shots. So I love Malik Neighbors. Devontae Adams, I think he's going to be the alpha in that receiver room. I think Aaron Rodgers has a point to prove. You brought him in. They've made changes in the coaching. They've made changes in who the play caller is going to be. I think that they're going to feed Devontae Adams. Those are the 2, I think, safe plays. I do love Jaden Reed. I'm a Jaden Reed guy through and through, so I love him. Stephon Diggs. So those are your top 3. I think if you eliminate Jaden Reed and Romeo Dobbs, even though I love Jordan Love, there's 4 receivers there you got to pick from. So it comes down to Malik Neighbors, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs. Man, that's a tough one. I'm probably going to go Malik Neighbors and Devontae Adams. I think just because of touchdown upside there with Devontae Adams, and I think with Malik Neighbors, I just think he gets peppered. So I'll go those guys, but would not be surprised if Stephon Diggs is in the top 2 there. Looks like that's it for the start and sit questions. You guys have any other questions, please let me know. Next game, we've got the Baltimore Ravens and the Cleveland Browns. The Ravens are 5-2. Cleveland Browns are 1-6. To say the Cleveland Browns are an absolute train wreck would be a massive understatement. Jameis Winston will be fun to watch. These Ravens team is playing at another level right now. Prediction, Baltimore Ravens 34, Cleveland Browns 13. I love that they're bringing in Jameis Winston. He likes to sling it. Only a member of the 30-30 club. This is not baseball. That's not a good thing when you're throwing 30 touchdowns and have 30 interceptions in a season. But let's go through Baltimore's offense, start and sit. They're first in scoring at 31.1 points a game. What's crazy is over the last 3, they're at 37.3 points a game. They are first in the NFL in rushing at 210.9 yards per game. That is 40 yards more than the second place team. So you talk about 40 more yards over 7 games. You're talking about 280-yard difference between first and second place in rushing yards per game. Fifth in passing, 250.6. Even as good as they've been running the football, they're up to 305.7 yards passing over the last 3 games. That offense is absolutely rolling. So obviously you're playing Lamar Jackson. Crazy stat for Lamar Jackson. There's a few of them. QB1. So let's go through his games. He's QB1 on the season at 25.7 fantasy points per game. QB5 in week 1, QB9 in week 2, QB4 in week 3, QB6 in week 4, QB3 in week 5, QB12 in week 6, QB1 overall in week 7. He's been a QB1 top 12 play every single week. He's in your lineup. His lowest scoring game was 17.4 points. He's projecting a crazy 4,397 yards passing. In his MVP season in 2019, he was at 3,600. He's also averaging 1,105 rushing yards. That's a 5,500 total yards for the season, with 36 touchdowns projected, only 5 interceptions. He's a definition of a cheat code. He's an absolute must start. Derrick Henry, wide receiver 1, a running back 1 in fantasy points per game at 21.9. He leads the NFL in attempts, rushing yards, total yards, rushing touchdowns, longest run, total touchdowns. He's got 37 runs of over 10 yards. So Derrick Henry is absolutely a start. Justice Hill for me is not getting enough volume. If this game does get away, he can give you some late points in that game, but I don't trust the volume there with Justice Hill. Wide receiver room, I love Zay Flowers this week. He's a wide receiver 18 this week, which put him mid wide receiver 2 range. So we like him. Rashad Bateman, he's popped the last couple of weeks. First 4 games, he was only averaging 3.5 targets and 2.3 grabs. But over the last 3 games, his targets are up to 5.3 a game and 4 grabs per game with 83 yards as a wide receiver 8 and 2 touchdowns over the last 3 games. I don't mind playing Rashad Bateman. Tight end room, I'm personally still staying away from it. It is Mark Andrews is the tight end 11 on the season. His first 4 games of the season, he was only getting 2.3 targets and 1.5 grabs per contest. He was tight end 39, but in the last 3 games, he's getting 4.3 targets, 3.7 grabs. So the volume still isn't great, but it's certainly much improved. 54 yards is definitely a big improvement over 16. He does have 3 touchdowns over the last 3 games, but he's only getting a 44% snap share. So again, when you dive deeper into the stats, yes, he's tight end 3 over the last 3 weeks, but he's had 3 touchdowns. You take away the touchdowns, the volume and the points aren't going to be there. So be careful of playing Mark Andrews this week. Isaiah Likely, I'm out on him since his massive game in week 1. He's averaging just 2.8 targets and 1.8 receptions per game. So I'm out on Isaiah Likely. On the other side of the ball, Jameis Winston, he's a low-end QB2. It's a negative game script. They're going to have to sling the rock if you have to in super flex leagues or 2 quarterback leagues. Play Jameis Winston. I don't hate it. Running back room, Nick Chubb. I still think he's on a pitch count this week. He's RB34 for me this week, which is on the low end of an RB3, so it's probably a flex play at best. I don't love him this week. Only do I love the talent. Just don't trust the volume this week, especially in what I think is going to be pass-heavy game script. Wide receiver room, this is where you attack Baltimore. Now, a little bit misleading is they're in high-scoring games, so in order to keep up the scoring, you're going to have to throw the football. So they're 31st in fantasy points per game to wide receivers and have allowed the 3rd most receiving yards per game to outside wide receivers. They've also given up 11 receiving touchdowns. Jerry Jeudy, let's talk about it. Wide receiver 70 in fantasy points per game. 7.5 targets, 4.5 grabs, 49 yards per game in the first 4. But if you look at his last 3 games, he's only at 4 targets, 1 grab, 23 yards, and 0 touchdowns. So basically, even with Amari Cooper in Buffalo, he's only seen an 11% target share and 22% air yard share with 8% of the targets on 3rd downs. That's not enough for me to trust putting him in my lineups. It's basically been he's not the best option for me in the wide receiver room. But he doesn't lead the field. I mean, he's on 10, 11, 12 personnel. He's going to be in the game. He doesn't come off the field. But I think he's, at best, a wide receiver 3 flex play. For me, the guy is Cedric Tillman. I think the consensus has him too low at wide receiver 49 this week. He played 82% of the snaps last week and saw a 24% target share and a 34% air yard share. To me, the only guys I think are worth starting are Cedric Tillman and David Njoku in that Cleveland offense. David Njoku has been absolutely balling, and Baltimore gives up the most receiving yards and 7th most fantasy points to tight ends. David Njoku is an absolute target hog and should be the number 1 pass catcher in that offense moving forward. So I'll take David Njoku to start that this week. Let's get back to start and sit questions. Lon Duvall. Lon, thanks for joining the show, man. I appreciate you, buddy. More touchdowns, Breece Hall or Josh Jacobs? Oh, man, I love it. I'm going to go. Josh Jacobs going to get you more on the rounds. Going to have to rely on the run game there. Green Bay's been throwing the football around. As I said, Julian Love's got 15 touchdown passes in 5 games. That's certificate going to go the wide receivers and tight ends. So I'm going to go Brees Hall there. More touchdowns, Mahomes or Caleb Williams. I'm going Caleb Williams. I think with the matchup, I think with Kansas City, they're more reliant on the defense, being able to flip field position, get after the quarterback, create good field position for Patrick Mahomes and that offense. I think they're still going to rely on Kareem Hunt to move the chains there. So I like Caleb Williams on the upside. And then full PPR, James Cook or Javonte Adams. I like Javonte Williams. I'm sorry. I like Javonte Williams this week. I think he's a big play against Carolina. Carolina gives up everything on defense. I don't care if it's the run game, passing game, name the position, they give it up. And now you throw no Deontay Johnson in the mix, and Bryce Young is your starting quarterback over Andy Dalton. So I hate they could be 3 and out multiple times, short drives, lots of punts. It means Denver's going to have the ball a lot. So I like Javonte Williams. And again, probably a positive game script. So I think I'm going to love Javonte Williams' volume this week, and you should too, Lon. Appreciate you, buddy. Half PPR, James Cook or DJ Moore. Half PPR, James Cook. I like James Cook, but also Ray Davis starting to get a little bit more in the mix there. You just added Amari Cooper. I like Keon Coleman because of the single high looks that I think Buffalo's going to see this week in terms of that favors of perimeter wide receivers. I'm going to go DJ Moore because I like Caleb Williams this week. DJ Moore to me is the most talented receiver in that receiver room. So I'll go DJ Moore there. DG Wavy, thanks for popping in, man. I appreciate you. Dalton Kincaid or Henry. I'm going to go with Hunter Henry. I think he's Drake May's security blanket. We've talked about Dalton. I think we haven't talked about Dalton Kincaid. I'm sorry. I've been looking at so many notes over the last couple of days and answering a lot of start and sit questions on Twitter that talk a lot about Dalton Kincaid. I still think it's Hunter Henry for me. I think he's the safest play in that New England offense. I think they're going to have to throw the football this week. So I trust Hunter Henry over Dalton Kincaid. Thank you very much, DG, for the question. Brian Robinson or Khalil Shakir. I would go Brian Robinson there. Again, I like Keon Coleman over Khalil Shakir this week. I know I'm probably in the minority there, but I like Brian Robinson just based on volume. I think he can get a touchdown on the ground this week. Jared Nelson. Appreciate you, brother. Thanks for coming on. If you guys have a Twitter account, love to show you guys repost the deal. Let people know I'll be on for another 15 to 30 minutes answering start and sit questions. If you could retweet that on Twitter for me, it'd be greatly appreciated. Obviously, I can't do that while I'm answering questions, and I do not have a co-host today, so I'm riding solo. But Jared Nelson, Tyler Boyd, or Christian Kirk. I like Tyler Boyd this week. I don't love the Tennessee offense, but I think Tyler Boyd has a better opportunity this week. I still think in Jacksonville it is Evan Ingram and it's Brian Thomas Jr., so I don't love Christian Kirk this week. I don't really care for either one of these guys this week, but I've had to pick one. I'll take Tyler Boyd, especially with DeAndre Hopkins now moving on to Kansas City. That opens up an opportunity for Tyler Boyd, I think, to be relevant this week. Dylan Fink, thanks for coming on, man. What's up, brother? Full PPR, different leagues. All right, let's start 2 flex. We got Rashad Bateman, Rome Odunze, Khalil Shakir, or Chris Olave. So in that one, start 2. I got to pick 2. I'm going to go with, I know that Alex Johnson from Yards Per, love you, brother. He is the reason we have this podcast. He's my boss. He's the one that runs Yards Per. So Alex Johnson feels like it's a Rome Odunze week. I'm not going to go against the boss. We've talked about Khalil Shakir and Chris Olave. I'm not in love with those guys this week. I don't love Odunze this week, but I think it's a good week to pop. Why not? Rashad Bateman's played well recently. I think that game is going to come down to, are you in a positive game script or are you not? Are we having to throw the football around or are you not? And if you are throwing the football, how much that's going to go to Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews? So I'm going to shift a little bit. I'm going to say out of those 4, I actually like Chris Olave. I think he is the wide receiver 1. He's the best target there. I'm going to say Rome Odunze. Why not? We'll go with Alex there and Rome Odunze. So other question, second question, 1 tight end, Cole Kmet or Zach Ertz. I'm going to go Cole Kmet. I know it's wild. You got 4 pass catching options in Chicago. As much as I love Zach Ertz, I'm still going to go roll with Cole Kmet there. I think there's better opportunity there. I think he's a better athlete. He's younger. I can give you a little bit more after the catch if needed. 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 1 wide receiver, 1 flex. Tua Tagovailoa. Jaden Daniels, Kirko Change, Captain Kirk, Jacobs, Dobbins, or Kenneth Walker III, K9. Between Tua, Daniels, and Kirk, I'm assuming this is a two-part question. I will play. I think Tua Tagovailoa has the opportunity in the passing yards. Obviously, Jaden Daniels gives you the upside there. That's a tough problem to have. If I'm going to go one quarterback and have to pick one, I'm going to go with. Oh man, flip a coin here, man. Flip it 3 times. I'm going to go with Tua Tagovailoa there. Again, Matthew Stafford, same situation, right? You get your top 2 receivers that I think are healthy, and it's a must-win game, I think, for Miami. I think they're going to open up the floodgates. So I'm going to go with Tua Tagovailoa there. I think he can get you 2+ touchdowns this week. Wilson, Jacobs, Dobbins, or K9. I like J.K. Dobbins there. No, I'm sorry. I like Kenneth Walker there. I'm sorry, in Seattle. I like Kenneth Walker there. He's played well recently. He's getting the volume and the touches there, so I like him. Garrett Wilson, Scary Terry, or D-Hop. I don't love Scary Terry's matchup this week, but I do like that he gets Jaden Daniels over Terry McLaurin. I'm going to go Garrett Wilson there. I think D-Hop's on a pitch count. I'm going Garrett Wilson. I think the Jets are going to have to throw the ball this week, which they've been doing recently to have a chance to win. DJ Wavy, Bo Nix, or Kyler Murray. Got a great matchup for Bo Nix. The only concern there is game script. If they get out early and get a lead, they're going to rely more on the passing game. We're not seeing enough passing touchdowns out of Bo Nix, so I'm going to go Kyler Murray there, although I do love the matchup for Bo Nix this week. Just concerned with the heavy run game late in the game. Dak or Tua, I wouldn't get to start Tua there. BK, thank you very much. I'm going Tua Tagovailoa. Again, I'm in on Tua Tagovailoa. We know what that offense looks like. He was over 300 yards in week 1 when he was healthy, threw multiple touchdowns, and we know what he did last year in that offense, so I'm going to go Tua. Dak has not played well as of recent. They're also 0-3 on the road or 0-3 at home and 3-0 on the road, but I'm taking Tua Tagovailoa. Tyler Sperry, thanks for coming on, man. Tank Dell or Tank Bigsby when you have to battle between the 2 tanks and Love or Hurt. So, okay, assuming these are all 3 guys. Oh, no, I'm sorry. 2-part question. Tank Dell or Tank Bigsby? I'm going Tank Bigsby. He's getting the volume. ETN is out. And then between Jordan Love or Jalen Hurts. Obviously, you like Jalen Hurts in the run game, but the reality is his rushing yards and his touchdowns. He's only got 3 rushing touchdowns on the season, I think, if I remember correctly. I haven't gotten that game yet, but I think that's the play. I like Jordan Love. 3 touchdown passes, average per game, 15 total touchdown passes on the season. I like the upside there of Jordan Love, so I'm going to play Jordan Love there. If this was last year, I'd go Jalen Hurts. He's giving you more in the rush game. I don't trust the Eagles right now. I think that game against Cincinnati is a must-win game for Cincinnati. I think that's a close game. I do think the Eagles win that game, but we know how the Eagles play when they're in the lead. I just don't trust Jalen Hurts as much as I trust Jordan Love right now. So appreciate all the questions, guys. We will stay on until 9:45. We're obviously not going to get through all the games. If you have more start and sit questions, keep firing them out. If you guys just want to talk ball, talk matchups, more than happy to talk that too. We can. I'm here for you guys, man. Again, at Coach Bruce 122 on Twitter. Would love if you guys could let me know how the start and sets worked out for you guys. Did you win your matchups this week? If you have roster questions, if you have NFL matchup questions, I'm probably more of an NFL guy than a fantasy guy, but obviously I think what we're trying to do is from a coaching perspective, take deep dives into matchups and how that can help you to make decisions on who to start in your lineup. So hopefully I'm giving you guys a little bit different twist than what you guys are used to with most analysts in this space. So let's talk. Hey, since we got Bendo, we got some Eagle fans. Let's talk Philadelphia Eagles game. Philadelphia Eagles are 4-2. Cincinnati Bengals 3-4. To me, the key to this game is Cincinnati's ability to put pressure on Jalen Hurts. When Jalen Hurts is pressured, he's 32nd in the league in PFF grade at 30.8. When he has a clean pocket, he's got an 82.8 PFF grade, so plays very well with a clean pocket, but not so well. But the Bengals are 17th in total pressures and 22nd in pressure percentage. Outside of Trey Henderson, there's not a whole lot there in terms of the front 7, in terms of somebody bringing pressure. I think the trio of Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith are too much for the Bengals. With T. Higgins now out, I like Philadelphia 27, Bengals 23. Quarterback room, Cincinnati gives up the 7th most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts, QB8 on the season, fantasy points per game. He's QB3 for me this week. Not for me, I'm sorry. In the consensus rankings, he scored 16 or more fantasy points in 5 out of 6 games. He gives a very safe floor. After throwing 2 touchdowns to 2 interceptions in the first 3 games, he's thrown 4 touchdowns and no interceptions in the last 3 games. If he can fix the turnover problems, which it looks like he has, he's got a healthy A.J. Brown. He's got a healthy Devontae Smith. He's got a healthy Saquon Barkley. Obviously, Dallas Goedert out this week, but I like Jalen Hurts this week. And running back room, Cincinnati ranks in the middle of the pack in fantasy points per game, rushing yards allowed, and pretty much every other metric against the running back room. So, but Saquon Barkley is RB4 in fantasy points per game. He's the RB2 for me this week, averaging 21.6 touches, 126.8 scrimmage yards, and 6.1 yards per touch with 6 touchdowns on the season. He's always in your lineups. Wide receiver room, Cincinnati is 11th in fantasy points per game to wide receivers and give up the 10th most receiving touchdowns to perimeter wide receivers. A.J. Brown is a perimeter wide receiver. Devontae Smith is a perimeter wide receiver. Those two are both in. They will move those guys around a little bit, but primarily those guys are outside receivers. A.J. Brown at wide receiver 4 this week for me, and Devontae Smith, wide receiver 19. No Dallas Goedert. He becomes a second option in this offense. He is anyways. The only reason why I say that is based on game script, based on coverages. Sometimes Goddard's going to get more touches than Devontae Smith, just based on how the game goes. But tight end room with Dallas Goedert out, I don't love Grant Calcaterra. I think he's a decent player. With both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith healthy, I just don't think there's enough meat on the bone for Grant Calcaterra. But hey, would I be surprised if he gets a touchdown? Would I be surprised to see him catch a seam downfield? No, I would not. He's an athlete. He's had some moments where he's played well, but he's a sit for me unless you're desperate. Other side of the ball, Cincinnati is 10th in scoring at 25.4 points per game. They're 28th in rushing and 8th in passing at 237.4 yards per game. We've seen this offense come alive recently. Philadelphia gives up the 10th fewest fantasy points per game to running back. So Joe Burrow, yes, 10th fewest points per game to quarterbacks, but I like Joe Burrow this week, QB5. Even without T. Higgins, to me, yes, you don't have T. Higgins, but Andre Yoshevich out of Princeton has stepped up with T. Higgins out. He's gotten some goal line touches. I think he had 3 touchdowns in the first 3 weeks. So they like to look at him in the goal line without T. Higgins. So I still like Joe Burrow this week as a QB5. He's got QB1 upside. In the running back room, Philadelphia gives up the 5th fewest fantasy points per game to running backs. Chase Brown is RB25 in fantasy points per game. I think he's RB24 this week, so he's a low-end RB2 flex play. There he is, I think, the favorite over Zach Moss. Zach Moss is RB30 in fantasy points per game, averaging less than 3 fantasy points per game over the last 3. This is now officially, in my opinion, Chase Brown's backfield. Wide receiver room for Cincinnati, I'm starting Jamar Chase. He's wide receiver 4 in fantasy points per game on the season, and wide receiver 1 over the last 3 games. Over his last 5 games, he's getting over 7 targets a game, 6 grabs, over 105 receiving yards per game with 5 touchdowns. There's no situation where you're sitting Jamar Chase. T. Higgins, unfortunately, he is out. We talked about DeAndre Yoshevich out of Princeton. He's the guy that I expect. And now, to me, Eric All gets an uptick as a tight end. He's a guy I do have as a touchdown prop. With T. Higgins out, I do like Eric Hall this week as a low-end tight end too, with T. Higgins out. So he's not a must start. Again, depends on who your tight ends are, but as a streaming play, I don't mind Eric Hall. Let's get your start and sit questions. Let's see what do we got. Gonna make sure I'm not hitting these more than once. Dak or Tua, we answered that. Dell or Bigsby, Love or Hurts, we answered that. Yes, Ryan Bendel, the Bengals will have to play defense today to get a win. Footy University, man, thanks for jumping on. This one isn't looking good, but Mostert, Shepard, Ferguson, or Downs for my flex. We talked about Raheem Mostert earlier. It's been the Devin A. Chance show. I think he's become more of the running back. He's even getting 50% of the short yardage work and 50% of the goal line work when Raheem Mostert plays. Sterling Shepard, I like him rest of season as the Godwin role. I think this week it's not as great of a matchup for him. I think it's Kate Otten week this week, but Jake Ferguson for me or down. So for me, it comes down to if you're talking about who has the safest floor, it's probably Jake Ferguson. I think the Cowboys are going to have to use a tight end this week. So it's probably going to be Jake Ferguson for me. if you got to play one of those 4 guys in your flex, again, Mostert, you're looking for touchdown upside, and Josh Downs, I just don't trust Anthony Richardson in the passing game. And Shane Griffin, thanks for coming on, man. Mayfield or Tua? That's a great question. If Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were playing this week, I'd feel a little bit more comfortable taking. I would take Baker Mayfield because he's played all season long and he's putting up some great numbers. He's having his best season of his career this year. But both those guys are out. I don't think there's enough there with Jalen McMillan, Sterling Shepard, and I don't know why I'm forgetting the other receiver, but I think it's Tua Tagovailoa. I think just the weapons he has, I think in a must-win situation, I'll take Tua Tagovailoa. Andrew Hogan, Brian Robinson Jr. or Bucky Irvin full PPR for a flex spot. I actually like Bucky Irvin there. Bucky Irvin is healthy. I know he's getting the splits. I know late last week, it seems like we were getting dump offs to Rashad White. It's just that's what the defense was given Tampa Bay last week. But when you're without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, the game script's a little bit different for defenses. Like at this point, you're going to try to stop the run. You're going to try to make Baker Mayfield beat you with the wide receiver group and the pass catchers that he has. I think that favors Bucky Irvin a little bit in the passing game. So I'm going to go Bucky Irvin. Robinson's going to have to give you a touchdown, in my opinion. He just doesn't look like he's been playing healthy over the last couple of weeks. So I'm going to go Bucky Irvin there, although I think Robinson could be safer floor, but I like Bucky Irvin as a play this week. All right, guys, it's almost 9:30, so we'll start to wrap this up a little bit unless you guys have more questions. Again, I will stay on until 9:45. I have 12 fantasy teams myself. Like to get an opportunity to take a look at starts and sits for my own lineups before kickoff. Wife is telling me to tilt the camera down a little bit. Hopefully that's better. Sorry, guys. An hour into the show, and I finally got a chance to take a look at my phone. So let's take a look at the next matchup. Indianapolis Colts at Houston Texans. We've talked about this a little bit. I've got Houston Texans 31, Colts 17. If Joe Flacco was playing, maybe a little bit different score prediction there. Indianapolis Colts are 18th in scoring, 14th in rushing, and 17th in passing on the season. Houston is 24th in fantasy points per game allowed to quarterbacks and have given up the second most touchdown passes with 15. Unfortunately, it's Anthony Richardson, a quarterback. That right there tells me I'd much rather see Joe Flacco. It's clear to me the Colts, I get it. You want to play your young buck. You want to get him reps. He's only got 50-plus starts between college and the NFL, so he's still learning the game. But you're basically telling me at 4-3, you're in the playoff race, that you would rather get him reps than give your team the best chance to win. Just my opinion. I would have ridden hot hand as long as I'm in the playoff race. But so let me sum this up for you for Anthony Richardson. Out of 39 qualified quarterbacks, he's completed 31.6% of his deep balls. That's 21st in the league. 36.8% against pressure. That's 34th in the league. 46.3% in play action. That's 30th in the league. 51.2% with a clean pocket. That's with a clean pocket. He should be 60% or higher in a clean pocket. He's at 30. He's 35th in the league at only 51%. 57.4% catchable pass rate. That's 39th of 39 qualified quarterbacks are basically dead last in throwing a catchable football. He's completed just 48.5% of his passes this season for 783 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. As a runner, he's only averaging 39.4 yards per game and only has 1 rushing touchdown. So don't tell me rushing upside. It's not been there. It shouldn't be there. Yes, he has a chance to break it. If we're playing zone read, that means more with Jonathan Taylor in there, power read, whatever you want to call it. We can get into deeper dives in football game and what that mesh point looks like. But I'm going to try to stop JT before I'm stopping Anthony Richardson. But I don't like Anthony Richardson this week. Running back room. Houston gives up the 5th fewest fantasy points per game to running backs. I like Jonathan Taylor this week. He's RB8 in fantasy points per game at 18.2. He's missed the last 2 games. In his 4 games he has played, he's scored 4 touchdowns. He's averaging 19.5 touches, 106 yards, and 5.5 yards per touch. Jonathan Taylor's in your lineup. He's a safe RB2 play. Wide receiver room, don't trust any of them. We've talked about these guys in the start and sit question, so I don't trust anybody. Tight end room is gross. Kylan Granton, Mo Alley Cox, Drew Ogletree, and Will Mallory. Not playing them, ill. So Houston starts and sits quarterback room. Indiana gives up 10th most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks, 7th most passing yards to quarterbacks. CJ Stroud should be in your lineup this week as the QB8. Joe Mixon, we talked about volume. He should be in your lineup this week. Don't need to go in the deep dive there. I want to get to start and sit questions. Wide receiver room. Stephon Diggs is a play. He's a wide receiver one in this room without Nico Collins. By the way, Nico Collins still in the top 10 in total fantasy points with this will be his third game miss. So Tank Dell, wide receiver 25, low end RB2, wide receiver 3 flex play for me. And then tight end room, Dalton Schultz. He's a mid tight end 2 play this week. It means you don't have one of the top 12 guys, and Dalton Schultz not a bad play this week. So I don't hate it, but I don't love Dalton Schultz. He's never given anything after the catch. He doesn't give you a ton of yardage, but he's a guy that can get you a volume play and could get a sneaky touchdown. All right, starts and sits. Let's get to Ryan. Appreciate you jumping on, man. Good morning to you too. We've got DeAndre Swift, Josh Jacobs, or Kareem Hunt. Excuse me, guys. Pick 2. I'll go DeAndre Swift and Kareem Hunt. I'm sorry, Josh Jacobs and Kareem Hunt there. I love what Swift has done recently. They got him involved in the passing game. His total scrimmage yards look great. But I trust Josh Jacobs and Kareem Hunt to find the end zone this week. Great problem to have. Honestly, flip a coin. Those are 3 decent plays this week in their matchups. Kareem Hunt's not giving you a whole lot in terms of efficiency. He's not ranking real high in terms of missed tackles forced or yards after contact. But I still think that Kansas City's going to ride him. Ice Cold OG Jones. First of all, I love the name, man. Brock Purdy or Kyler Murray. I'm going to go against Dallas's defense, man. How do you not play the quarterback that plays against Dallas, right, based on what Dallas has given up this year? But also a must-win game for Brock Purdy. He does get George Kittle. He does have Debo this week. Chiefs defense or Ravens defense. I'm going to go Chiefs defense this week, but that is that's a great question. Probably should look up the rankings real quick, so I might have to get back to you on that one. But as of right now, off the top of my head, I'll take the Chiefs defense. And then Purdy or Kyler, already answered that. Rushing upside, I'll take Kyler Murray. God, you know what, man? No, I'm taking Brock Purdy there. I think Brock Purdy gets a couple of touchdowns this week against Dallas, so I'll take Brock Purdy. Kyler Murray's not throwing a ton of touchdowns, and he's got a couple long runs. Take those 2 long runs away. He's not giving you a ton in the rushing game. I'm sorry, was that Bigsby or Dell? Tyler, I'm not sure. I'm sorry, was that Bigsby or Dell? I'm sorry, Tyler, I'm not sure what you're asking there, man. Editorial, thanks for coming on. Appreciate you. Good morning. Pick 1 for flex. Zay Flowers, Romeo Doubs, or Chuba Hubbard. Must-win game. Appreciate you knowing that. That's a great question. Must-win game. Again, Romeo Doubs, he doesn't leave the field. It doesn't matter what personnel they're in. You just don't know from week to week out of those 4 wide receivers plus Tucker Kraft at tight end where the volume is going to go. So I don't trust the ceiling there. I'm going to go Zay Flowers. Look, it's easy to say Chuba Hubbard based on volume. But with Bryce Young playing and where he ranks in terms of his efficiency metrics, I'm doing everything I can to load the box and force Bryce Young into a passing game. I think they're going to get down early in that game. He's going to be forced to throw the football. Yes, Chuba could get you some cheap grabs, but again, what pass catch are you stopping that offense with Deontay Johnson out? I'm stopping Chuba Hubbard in the run game, and I'm making sure I've got a guy on him in the pass game. I'll let the other guys try to beat me. So let Xavier Leggett try to be the guy that beats me. Ryan Bendel. Richardson has a lot of progress to make if he wants to be good. Athleticism is top tier, though. Hey, no question. Loved him coming out of Florida. He's a big dude. He's a Mack truck. I love what he can give you in the run game. And Ryan, you know this. You were a great quarterback in high school. Still think you should have played college ball, brother. So I'm gonna throw it out to let the people know, man. But I just don't trust him as a passer. I think as a quarterback in the NFL, if you are not very good at processing information very quickly, so you could even say if your center is making the check calls at line of scrimmage, you as a quarterback still have to be able to read coverages, identify the mic backer, where the pressure is coming from, make the protection changes, and go to the right guy in your progression and throw with timing. So it's a 6 inches between the ears that means the most. And right now, Anthony Richardson, needs about 12 inches between the ears. He needs a lot more space for someone to drop some knowledge in there, man. I just don't trust it. Love the kid. I root for him. I hope he figures it out. Just can't trust it. Lavi Bletcher. Hopefully I'm saying that right. If not, I apologize. Appreciate you jumping on. Start one wide receiver and one flex. Keenan Allen, Khalil Shakir, Josh Downs, or Austin Eckler. I actually like Keenan Allen this week. We didn't get a chance to talk about the Bears game, but I do like Keenan Allen this week. I don't love Khalil Shakir this week. Josh Downs with Anthony Richardson. Yeah, he might get peppered with some targets, but I don't trust it. And then Austin Eckler, Zach Moss. I'm starting Keenan Allen out of those guys, man. Start one wide receiver, one flex. So Keenan Allen for me is a start. And I will go. God, I don't love it, man. I feel like you got to go Josh Downs there. Ryland, you are very welcome. Thank you for jumping on. Appreciate the questions. Guys, I've got about 10 more minutes. So if there's anything else you want to throw, I'd rather talk starts and sits, talk about matchups. You want to know who I predict to win in a specific game or what we're looking at there. I'm more than happy to answer those questions. You want to talk about, end of season awards, who I think is going to win what, or whatever you want to do, man. Throw them out there. I'm more than happy to answer those questions for you. Tennessee Titans. We can talk about the Tennessee Titans game. Tennessee Titans 1-5. Detroit Lions 5-2. The Titans are simply not a good football team. Jared Goff has got the Lions rolling. Dan Campbell's created an unbelievable culture there. If I'm an NFL free agent next year, I'm trying to get to the Detroit Lions and play with those guys. And they play winning football. They can smack you in the mouth. They can beat with finesse. I'll take the Lions at home 33-20 over Tennessee. And I think that's being kind to Tennessee. I'm assuming a late touchdown. Tennessee starts and sits. Their offense is 26th in scoring, 20th in rushing yards, and 32nd in passing yards. Detroit gives up the 6th lowest passer rating, 3rd lowest passing touchdowns to quarterbacks, and 8th lowest fantasy points per game. Not a great matchup for Mason Rudolph. It looks like he'll be the start, unless that's changed since we went live an hour ago. He went 25 of 40 for 215 yards, a touchdown and interception in his first start, but Mason Rudolph is a sit for me against this defense. Running back room, Detroit gives up the 7th fewest fantasy points per game to running backs, the 5th fewest rushing yards, and 3rd lowest yards after contact per attempt. But Tony Pollard, it's a volume play. Tajay Spears, not sure if he's in this week or not. I can't remember if he's in. I did not put him on here because he's not a start for me. But Tony Pollard, he's seen 18 or more touches and 65 or more scrimmage yards in 5 out of 6 games. He's a hard guy to sit with 18 touches a game. He's a low-end RB2, maybe even RB3 play this week. If you got to play him, I understand it. Don't love the matchup for him, but he might be a volume play for you. Detroit allows 4th most fantasy points per game to wide receivers. That's got more to do with, I think, playing with a lead a lot late in games or being in you've got to match Detroit's scoring, so you're going to have to throw the football. DeAndre Hopkins traded to Kansas City. That leaves Calvin Ridley. Don't trust it. He's a low-end wide receiver 3 flex play. He is the most talented wide receiver in that room. So you've got to figure out a way to manufacture touches for him. He's not been getting the volume. He's been getting the volume but not getting the catch rate. He's got a 17.6 catch rate over the last 17 targets over the last 2 games, which is brutal. They're just not throwing catchable footballs to him. Obviously, the separation's not there either. Tyler Boyd, talked about him early. Sneaky play this week. Don't love him unless you're in deeper leagues or desperate. I'm not putting Tyler Boyd in my lineups. Nick Westbrook, Ekine, we know what we get with him. Treylon Burks is on IR. That's why he's wide receiver 89 this week. Then tight end room, Chigakonkwo. He's tight end 29, only 5.3 fantasy points per game, so I'm not big on Chigakonkwo. On the other side of the ball, I'm starting Jared Goff. He's QB 14. He's an absolute start in Superflex leagues, but if you're a guy that didn't draft Jared Goff early in 1 quarterback leagues, you could wait, and your QB1 might have been Patrick Mahomes. I'm playing Jared Goff over Patrick Mahomes. If your quarterback was, there's other quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins knocking off to a great start this year. There was a time you would have started Jared Goff over Kirk Cousins. So there are other guys you could start Jared Goff over for sure. The last 3 games, he's got an 82.8% completion rate. He's thrown for 887 yards with 7 touchdowns, no interception, even has a receiving touchdown. 18.5 yards per completion is wild. 15.3 yards per attempt is wild. The craziest stat, the Lions have scored more touchdowns than Jared Goff has incompletions in the last 3 games. So he's absolutely dealing, but expect positive game script. Expect heavy run game late in the game. Jared Goff probably does not throw for a ton of yards. I think he's obviously going to be accurate based on what we've seen. It's going to get him to how many yards and how many touchdowns does he throw for. Jahmyr Gibbs is a must start. He's a RB7 on the season, RB1 last week. He's hit 70 scrimmage yards and 14 or more touches in every game this season with 6 touchdowns. So he's a play for me. Let's get to starts and sits, man. We only have a little bit of time left, so I want to help you guys out. Start Bigsby or Tank Dell. I'm starting Tank Bigsby there. Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate that. I'm starting Tank Bigsby. And Alex Johnson, thank you, man. Love you, brother. Like and subscribe. Yes, please like and subscribe to the Yards page or the Yards Per Fantasy YouTube page. Please follow them on Twitter at Yards Per Fantasy. It is a phenomenal site, breaks down their rankings every week. It's got everything on there that you could possibly need to help you win your fantasy leagues. It is a very underrated platform. Please get on there and follow us, like and subscribe on YouTube. Would appreciate it. Please comment, like, and share. The more views we can get, the more hits we can get, the more fun this becomes, the better the show gets. So I'd appreciate the support. Eric Anders, thanks for coming on, man. Good afternoon to you too, brother. 12-team half PPR. Let's see how many of you guys will jump in on this one, man. I'd love to hear you guys' takes as well. Start Jalen Waddle. Start 2, I'm sorry. Jalen Waddle, DJ Moore, Nick Chubb, or Jaron McMillan. I've talked to you guys. We've talked about it with Tampa Bay. I know a lot of guys. He's the first guy people want to get based on his rookie profile coming out. So everybody wants to see our Jalen McMillan play well this week. Maybe not. I want to see it first. So I'd rather have him on my bench than in my starting lineup and not play well. So I'm going to lean Jalen Waddle. Obviously, like the matchup this week. I like DJ Moore. I'm going to go Waddle, DJ Moore. I'm going to chase ceiling here. Nick Chubb. I think he's on a pitch count still. I think it's a negative game script for Chubb or for Cleveland. They're going to have to throw the ball a little bit more. So I'm going to take the safer floors with Jalen Waddle and DJ Moore, even in half PPR. Eric Andrews has another question. Sorry, guys. Trying to scroll down as these questions are popping up. Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, or Tua? Half PPR. Doesn't really matter unless they're catching footballs, but appreciate you. Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, or Tua Tagovailoa. Again, I got to be consistent, guys. I've talked about Tua Tagovailoa. I've talked about Matt Stafford with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp coming in. A lot of people sat Cooper Kupp, especially Puka Nacua, thinking, maybe they're on a pitch count this week. That did not work in your favor. So I'm not going to make the same mistake again this week with a healthy Jalen Waddle, with a healthy Tyreek Hill in a must-win situation. I trust Tua Tagovailoa there more than the other guys. Ryan Bendel, any props you love today? Man, I usually take a look at those right before game time and make a couple bets late. I've got them written in my show notes. We've only gotten through 4 or 5 games out of the 15, so haven't had a chance to look over them. But if you've got some prop bets you're thinking about, please throw them in there. I will absolutely tell you if I think they're going to hit the over-under. If you've got a parlay, I can absolutely walk you through that. I'm trying to come up with that off the top of my head and answer all these questions. A little bit tough, man, but appreciate you. Love you, brother. Scano6839, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you. PPR start 1. Khalil Shakir or Cedric Tillman? Cedric Tillman. I'm high on him. I love Cedric Tillman this week. I think he becomes a wide receiver 1. We saw what he did last week when Jameis Winston got in the game. I love Cedric Tillman this week, and I love him rest of season as the wide receiver 1 in that offense. I don't think it's Jerry Jeudy. Second question from Scano. Start Moore or Adams, assuming you're talking DJ Moore here, because I'm sure Ronald Moore is out for the year, and I'm sure you're not talking about anybody else there. So DJ Moore, Devontae Adams. Man, both guys should get peppered. It's going to come down to touchdowns. I like Devontae Adams as a threat in the red zone more than I like DJ Moore. He's more of an explosive play guy, yards after catch. So I'll take Devontae Adams there. But love that that's a choice you have to make. Waddle and DJ. Scan, I don't know if you're asking me Waddle or DJ Moore. If you are, I'd go DJ Moore there. Waddle then Moore for me for Bendel. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good with that too, man. We've talked about Tua. If I'm as high on Tua as I am, then I should be high on Waddle. I'm also high on DJ Moore. More mouths defeated in Chicago with Cole Kmet, Rome Odunze, and Keenan Allen. So I don't hate that. So yeah, you know what? Well, Ryan, talk me into it, man. I'll go Waddle over DJ Moore. I'm right there with you, brother. Akrazia, thanks for jumping on. I hope I pronounced that right. If not, I apologize, man. Start 2 wide receivers. We've got PPR, flex PPR, Devontae Adams, Tank Dell. I'm assuming that's Devontae Smith based on the way you spelled it. Brian Robinson, Keenan Allen, Olave Laporta, Cade Otton. Start 2 wide receivers, 1 flex. Okay, I get the question now. Start 2 wide receivers, 1 flex. So I'm going to go. Your running backs are Bajan and Jacobs. Tight end is Njoku. Love that. So if I'm going 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, assuming you're just telling me who your running backs are, your starters are Bajan and Jacobs, your tight ends Njoku. So I have more information to make my 2 wide receiver and 1 flex play. So of the 3 guys you listed, I'm probably going to go to Devontae Smith as wide receiver 2 in Philadelphia. I like him, especially with Goddard out. And I like Keenan Allen, or I like Cade Otton. So I think, I'm going to go Cade Otton again. I think Cade Otton gets peppered this week with Tampa Bay, with both Godwin and Evans out. So, man, that's a great lineup. I love that. Bajan and Jacobs in the running back room. I love tight end David Njoku this week. So, not a bad spot to be in. You've got some good choices there. Oh, got you, Scano. You're answering the previous question. Appreciate that, man. Love it. Keep it coming. All right, guys, it's 9:45. We still got 70 people that are tuning in. So if anybody's got any other start and sit questions, you want to talk matchups, you want to talk NFL, we want to talk college football. I mean, anything you guys want to talk about. I don't watch a ton of college football because I'm constantly studying, but I do try to follow it as much as I can. But I'm mostly an NFL guy for sure. We can run through game picks. Atlanta Falcons, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I've got Atlanta Falcons 27, Tampa Bay 23. I think the Atlanta Falcons sweep the series this week. I think you're asking Tampa Bay to overcome too much this week in terms of the loss of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I would have picked Tampa Bay to win that game after what happened in Week 5, and Kirk Cousins absolutely dropping dimes, going for over 500 yards in that game. But man, without those 2 guys, even at home, I still think Atlanta Falcons come out with a win there. I hope it's Tampa Bay. I hope I'm wrong. Next game we have got. I got to get through all my notes here. New Orleans Saints at Los Angeles Chargers. Spencer Rattler on the road against even as a not a good thing for Saints fans, man. I've got Los Angeles Chargers 27, New Orleans Saints 13. I think the Chargers. Justin Herbert starting to throw the football a little bit more at his first 300-yard game of the season. Had several, obviously, been under 200 yards in most games this year. So I like the Chargers in that one. Next game, if you guys got any more questions, man, keep popping them up. Appreciate it. Buffalo Bills, Seattle Seahawks. I've got Buffalo Bills 37, Seattle Seahawks 27. I think this is a high-scoring game. So I will take Buffalo there. Interesting how, Seattle, as far as their wide receivers go, is who do you play, right? You've got Tyler Lockett with DK Metcalf out. You got Jackson Smith and Jigba. Who do you guys think is the best wide receiver option this week between those 2 guys in this game? Jackson Smith and Jigba or Tyler Lockett? I'll give you my breakdown, but then I'm kind of giving away the answer there. So Chicago Bears get the next game. I got Chicago Bears 4-2 against Washington Commanders at 5-2. We now know Jane Daniels is in, and they're playing at home. I had Chicago Bears 27, Washington Commanders 23. Look, at some point the Washington Commanders are going to lose. I'm concerned about the health of Jane Daniels from a standpoint of how much usefulness does he give you in the run game. Is he going to play smart? Are they going to try to get the ball out of hands quickly? So I'm going to go Chicago Bears. I'm going to take the upset here. Chicago Bears went on the road 27-23. I think at some point that Washington defense is going to show up. It's not a great defense. It's been very situational. And I think that the way that Caleb Williams is playing, I'm going to give them an opportunity to win that game. So I've got Caleb Williams as a start. DeAndre Swift as an RB2 this week. I like him. I like DJ Moore this week. I like Keenan Allen this week. And then Rome Odunze, I know Alex Johnson, you love Rome Odunze this week, so I did not have him as a must start, but I get it in deeper formats. You want to play him on a touchdown parlay. If it's your money, I'll make the bet. If it's mine, probably not. Cole Kmet for me, he's tight end 3 since week 2. It's hard to keep him out of your lineup, even though there's a lot of mouths to feed. I think they're going to continue to throw the football. Caleb Williams, we talked about the 6 inches between the ears with Anthony Richardson. Caleb Williams, Man, that light's already on. He's got it figured out. He's putting the team in good situations. He's playing. He's protecting the football. Um, Not big on Brian Robinson as a must start this week. Terry McLaurin, 5 straight games in digit scoring. Unfortunately, he's getting Jalen Johnson this week. Jalen Johnson will travel. There's nobody else in that passing game with wide receiver position in Washington that I'm overly concerned with. So Jalen Johnson is going to lock up on Terry McLaurin. He's only given up 10 catches for 113 yards on the season with no touchdowns. So I do not like Terry McLaurin this week. He's a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 play. Wide receiver 2 to me is his ceiling. Don't love that play, that matchup. Hey guys, I think I got to all the questions, man. So we didn't get to all the games. Apologize for that. For those of you that jumped on to listen, we've got 10 minutes until kickoff. So I'm going to go through and get through my notes on my games, go through my lineups to make sure I've got the right guys in. Try to make a couple up. But again, as long as questions are flowing in, man, F my games. I'd rather answer your guys' start and sit questions. So appreciate you, big Bills guy. Bills fan here, man. I love it. We could talk Bills all day long. So flex 1 PPR, Chris Olave or Chase Brown. I'm going to go Chase Brown there. Spencer Rattler at quarterback. Yes, I think they're going to try to manufacture touches for Chris Olave, especially with Rashid Shaheed out. But I would not be surprised to see a lot of Taysom Hill in that game in terms of situational football. I think they're going to move Taysom Hill all around. I wouldn't be surprised taking some snaps. He's going to take away, I think, some red zone touches. So I trust the upside of Chase Brown there. Olave is a safer play. I get it, but I'm going to chase the ceiling here. Don't want to leave as long as you guys are throwing questions up there, man. We got 9 minutes till kickoff, so I'm here until I'm not getting any more questions. Big Bills guy, thank you. Go Bills. Yes, I'm with you. I'd love to see the Bills get a win this week. I'd love to get your thoughts on Josh Allen. No interceptions this year. I believe it's 12 touchdown passes. Obviously, we know what he gives you in the run game. Love the way he's playing right now, protecting the football. They got to get it figured out. And I think now a full week with Amari Cooper in practice. I love Amari Cooper this week. And this is a great time to note it, Big Bills guy. I'd love to get your thoughts on it too. I've got Keon Coleman over Khalil Shakir this week. That's not from a PPR standpoint. If you're talking half PPR or standard scoring, they play a lot of they're going to be facing a lot of single high looks. I think at over a 59% clip from the opposing defense. I think that favors Keon Coleman on the outside in the vertical passing game. I think you can use safety, or you can use tight ends on seam routes. You can use over routes to occupy and put that safety, that one high safety in conflict. I think that opens things up on the outside for Keon Coleman. So love to get your thoughts on that, Big Bills guy, if you're still listening. If not, no worries. I don't know if Ryan Bendel and Blake Nelson and Todd and all those guys are still listening, but if you are, man, love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Acrazia, Scano. Again, at Coach Bruce 122, where you can find me on Twitter. Love to hear how you guys are doing. Look, my goal has always been to do all the research so you don't have to make your decisions as easy as possible. I do one show a week, sometimes two, if I can squeeze one in on Wednesday nights. I don't write articles for a site. I travel for business 3 weeks out of the month, so I don't have a ton of time to put into it. So I put all my time and effort into writing it up. I think I hit about 14,000 words in write-ups between every game. So just trust the process, trust that the math and the analytics have been done. I trust the eye test. I'm a coach by nature, so I'm big on the eye test, on what I see, but I'm also big on taking deep dives into matchups on a given week. So hopefully I'm giving you guys something you don't normally hear. Big Bills guy, I think Keon will earn more targets this week than last week. I like him over Shakir this week as well. I love it, man. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in, man. I'm right there with you. I like Keon Coleman this week too. Josh has shown some solid trust with him now, including some good 50-50 balls, which is what Keon gives you. Yeah, I think Keon will be a very good player. I agree with you. Todd McMillan. He asked me this last night, man, so I love this question. At first, I thought he was talking about a trade involving Pat Mahomes, so I was answering the question incorrectly. So I appreciate you clarifying that, Todd. Pat Freiermuth or Dalton Schultz this week. Obviously, with Russell Wilson at quarterback versus Justin Fields, that gives Pat Freiermuth a little bit of an uptick. Also gives George Pickens a little bit of an uptick. We saw what he could do last week in the vertical passing game. I don't love Dalton Schultz, but I love the passing volume that they get in that offense. The Steelers are still going to be a run first team, running that through Najee Harris. It's a toss up, man, but I like Pat Freiermuth better as an athlete. If they can find a way to get him touches, I like the upside of Pat Freiermuth over Dalton Schultz, which I think last night I said Dalton Schultz, but I did a little bit more digging on it last night when I got home as I was driving on my car when I was answering those questions for you last night. So I still like the upside of Pat Freiermuth over Dalton Schultz this week. Ryan Bendel, appreciate you, Coach. Appreciate you too, man. Thanks for tuning in. Todd McMillan's laughing because I changed my mind. But hey, this is what we do, Todd. 5 minutes before game time, man. We change our minds. That's what we do in fantasy, and you can almost bank on it. 70% of the time when you change your mind, it's the wrong decision. So trust your gut. Whoever you had in the lineup last night, it's probably who you should play right now. So unless there's some major things that have happened to change that. So like T. Higgins for me, him being out in the Cincinnati game, to me that puts Philadelphia winning that football game. Even if he was playing, knowing that the soft issue quad injury came up on Friday, he probably would have been on a pitch count. So I'd probably still take Philadelphia in that game. Thanks, Coach. Love supporting you. Thank you, man. Big Bills guy. Chris Olave or Tank Dell? I'm going to go Chris Olave only because I think talent over situation. Yes, he gets Spencer Rattler, but Chris Olave, you can manufacture touches, I think, a little bit easier. Tank Dell's more of a vertical passing game guy. CJ Stroud in that offense. And again, CJ Stroud's at his best if he's getting a chance to sling the football. Chris Olave is the better player. And I think in that situation, even with Spencer Rattler, man, that's a tough one, man. I want to say Tank Dell due to passing volume and with Nico Collins out, but I think Stephon Diggs is your intermediate guy. He's the first read in most of their progressions. If I had to choose one right now, man, I'm probably going to go Chris Olave. I'm going to take the better player. All right, guys, we got 3 minutes till game time. Still got 71 people listening in. So if you got questions, I will stay on. Can I drop Ford? Well, personally, I prefer Dodge over Fords, Todd. So, based on that, if we're talking cars versus show, no, I'm just kidding. Jerome Ford, yeah, I think with Nick Chubb back, I don't know if I drop him. I think he's a handcuff. I think there's some Pierre Strong. You've got some running backs there, but when Nick Chubb is out, Jerome Ford has been the guy. I don't know that I drop him if I've got deeper leagues, but if it's shorter leagues and you can pick guys up on the waiver wire, I don't hate it. So it depends on who you have in your lineup and how deep your rosters are. Randy T92, thanks for tuning in, man. Jonathan Taylor or Drake London? Man, when it gets into running backs versus wide receivers, Drake London's been balling out this week. Jonathan Taylor's first game back. It's Anthony Richardson. Team should stuff the box to force Anthony Richardson to beat you in the passing game, but Jonathan Taylor is not. It's not like he's a guy that doesn't catch the rock. So I'm going to go probably Drake London there, and I just say that because Drake London, the way he's playing lately, he's the red zone target. He's getting the third down work as well. He's your X receiver, man. He's your guy you expect to beat one-on-one coverage. So I'm going to go Drake London there. Big Bills guy, Tank Dell or Brown. If you're talking Chase Brown, I'm going Chase Brown. Obviously, if you're talking A.J. Brown, I'm going A.J. Brown. I don't know who you're talking about. Sorry, man. I'm getting a ton of questions, Big Bills guys. So some of your questions from before are so far up, I can't scroll back to them. So I apologize. If you could give me the first name of who you're talking about with Brown. Ice Cold OG Jones, Chase Brown or Khalil Shakir. I got to get to these quickly. You guys won't have time to make your lineup changes. I'm going Chase Brown over Shakir. Chase Brown, Shakir, or Keenan Allen in that situation. I'm still going to go Chase Brown. I just trust the RB volume and touches there. Randy T92, that was your thoughts. Good. I'm glad I could confirm your thoughts, man. Trust me, I need people to confirm mine too, brother. So appreciate it. All right, guys, we still got 75 people in here. 1 minute till game time. If you guys are still throwing questions out, I will stay on. I missed the games. I'm good with that. If I don't get to sit my lineups, I'm good with that too. I think most of my lineups are set. I did look at them at 5 o'clock this morning, so hopefully nothing major has changed since then. Big Bills guy, appreciate you too, man. Hopefully we'll get you to tune in every week. We will start doing When we can, Wednesday night shows, they're on a week-to-week basis again because I travel for work, and sometimes those got to be out of hotel rooms, or if I'm entertaining customers, I can't do it. So, but I'll always be here Sunday mornings, 8:30 in the morning if I can, unless travel is permitting. I will be traveling to Dallas in November for the game, so I will not be on that Sunday when the Eagles come to Dallas for the Cowboys game. So, any other questions, comments, concerns? We did not get to Panthers Broncos game. I've got Broncos 24, Panthers 16. That's assuming a late touchdown. Randy T, game time. Let's go. Good show. Thank you, Randy. Appreciate that, man. If you guys again could follow at Yards Per Fantasy on YouTube, like and subscribe. Put some comments in there to drive traffic, man. Really appreciate it. Again, I only get a chance to get on here once a week. I don't write for any sites and don't do anything outside of this podcast. So this is the only visibility I get. So your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you, Randy, for tuning in. Appreciate you, man. All right, guys. We're going to go ahead and stop the show, man. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Good luck in your matchups. Hopefully your favorite teams win. We'll talk to you soon. You can find me at Coach Bruce 122. Would love to hear how your teams did. I love more engagement than just the podcast. Let's keep this thing rolling. Let's keep it moving forward, man. Appreciate you guys, and we will talk to you soon. See you next Sunday.